I used to think that people could avoid all the worst twisted tales by making sure they're not written by Liz Broswell.
I was wrong! I was horribly wrong!
But this one's written by Jen Colonita, and it's still rubbish. In case you don't know much about Disney's Twisted Tales, they're alternate timeline offshoots of Disney movies. This one, Suddenly Super, is based off of The Incredibles, and it asks the question, what if Violet became an agent of Syndrome? First of all, the plot stretches itself so thin. What happens is Syndrome kidnaps Mr. and Mrs. Incredible. Syndrome tricks Violet and Dash into thinking that another supervillain named Mastermind is after them. They go to Syndrome's place and he tells Violet that their parents are dead. She spends a lot of time lamenting the death of her parents that we know didn't happen, and she trains for a very stupid plan. What I've described gets chewed on for hundreds of pages. The plan that Violet is trying to execute is unbearably stupid. Here's how it goes. She thinks that this other supervillain named Mastermind kidnapped her parents and used a nullifier to strip them of their powers. She was also told that that supervillain would have let her parents live if they didn't swear that they would keep coming for her. So Violet is convinced by Syndrome that if they get the nullifier and use it to take her powers away and her brother's powers away, then they won't be a target for supervillains anymore. I can buy someone thinking that Syndrome has their best interests at heart, but the concept of supervillains leaving them alone if they steal the nullifier, and then hoping that they just believe that they use the nullifier to get rid of their powers, is moronic. The plan is literally to steal the nullifier from a dangerous supervillain, and then hope she believes us when we say that we don't have our powers anymore. And then hope the supervillain is like, oh, you don't have powers anymore? Okay, I guess I won't take revenge on you for stealing my most valuable weapon. It's literally marionette logic. In order to protect people, she wants to take away the powers that they need to protect themselves. And then hope that the villain believes them when they say they don't have the powers anymore, and isn't angry at them for anything. And it is possible to write an idiot plot effectively, provided that you treat the characters like they're being idiots. But this book has multiple occasions where it calls Violet smart. Even Syndrome calls her smart. And I keep thinking, she's not smart. She agreed to this asinine plan. And I get the message of her trying to get rid of her powers that she didn't want, only for her to realize that she shouldn't have tried to get rid of what makes her special. But you can't use that to have her go along with the stupidest plan I've ever heard and then say what a smart role model she is. Violet is written in such an infuriating way where she keeps demanding answers to her questions. Meanwhile, she doesn't tell Dash anything about what's going on. There's a part where Dash is asking something like, are our parents really dead? And then she just changes the subject. And for some reason, he lets her get away with that. It felt like somewhere near the end, Jen Colonita realized that this book wasn't going to be good and she just gave up. That's what it feels like anyway. Violet steals a nullifier from Mastermind. She brings it to Syndrome. Syndrome tries to convince Violet to be his sidekick. It doesn't work, and then she, like an idiot, announces to him that she figured out he's the bad guy. Because she's just too smart to pretend to go along with his plan and then sneak out when he's not looking. So he uses the nullifier on her, and she wakes up later with the guards knocked out for some reason. We find out later that Mirage knocked them out. Because apparently her years of acting training have prepared her to easily take out a bunch of guards herself. At this point, Violet has figured out that her mom left her a phone number for an agency to call if she's in trouble. But what does she do first? She goes to a diner and meets her two friends from high school so that she can debrief them on the situation. One of them is Kari, the babysitter.
The baby was exploding! You ever seen an exploding baby before, Mr. Dicker?
And they make it very clear that she'll need to have her memory wiped when this is over, and she has never enough help for them to justify telling her these secrets in the first place. Someone asks her about calling the agency, and she's like, there's no time, we need to get there ourselves. She doesn't have time to have the agency take care of things. but she did have time to recap the whole plot to her friends who are no help. They go on their way to meet Syndrome, while concocting a plan which is overcomplicated and doesn't work anyway. Something about impersonating Mastermind's voice on the phone to threaten to tell the agency where he is or something. All three of them get caught, and her two friends get knocked out, so they might as well have not been there at all. Then Mirage shows up, and she's like, I know that you threw me out the window. By the way, he tried to kill her earlier by throwing her through a glass door and off a balcony. And then she's like, but how about you and me be partners even though we're broken up? And he's like, what, you mean partners, not boyfriend and girlfriend anymore? And she's like, I want to be partners as your equal in this business operation, but not as an actress, which is the only thing I've been trained to do. And I want you to give me the keys to the kingdom as the equal partner in this business operation, even though I have no experience with technology or running the company or anything. And even though no one would agree to that ever, he actually shakes her hand on this. And then she knocks him out, and then she turns out to be on Violet's side, but I'm still hung up on him agreeing to this for no reason. Oh, and earlier in the book, after she was thrown off the balcony, here's a quote from the book's narration. How could she let herself be bested by a boy? That was supposed to be a question that she asked herself. So apparently Mirage views boys as less intelligent, and she ends up helping the good guys later on, and we're supposed to root for her to a certain degree. After reading that, I rechecked the author on the cover because this is the same author who wrote Go the Distance, and that one had some good stuff about Meg realizing that she shouldn't have that toxic, I don't need help from anyone thing. And that book had male characters put in a positive light. And that book went against the idea of men being untrustworthy. And then that same author writes, how could she be bested by a boy? What happened? Did some executive come up to her and be like, writer, did I just catch you not hating men? After reading Go the Distance, I thought she was better than this. I mean, not fantastic, but better than this. So thank goodness this is not as bad as half, maybe more, of the Twisted Tales. And then they save the family and Violet gets her powers back, and Mirage goes off to work with Mastermind, who wants to bring back the glory days of heroes and villains fighting each other. And as soon as I was done reading the book, I said out loud, rubbish. But I can't just leave you with nothing to read, can I? A while ago I talked about the Bone Shard Daughter and how it was more recommendable than several Twisted Tales. The Bone Shard magic is a pretty interesting magic system. The way they do it is they take a shard of bone from children in the tithing festival, I think is what it's called. Perfect thing to recommend to Disney fans. They put those bone shards into these constructs that are like cobbled together from different animal parts. And when those bone shards are used, they suck the life out of the person that they were taken from. It's a pretty dark magic system, and she struggles with not wanting to suck the life out of people, but also she's desperate to improve her situation with her father and not have the Emperor's foster son be the one to take over. At the time I said that I hadn't read the sequel yet, The Bone Shard Emperor, but now I have read it. It's pretty good. Granted, there was a part where the characters, Falu and Romani, if that's how you pronounce them, those characters became a conflict of interests, and there was a bit of annoying drama when something gets revealed to one of the characters later in the book, but for the most part I thought it was pretty good. There's this layered dynamic between Jovis and Lynn. It weaves in both them getting on each other's nerves, but also getting to like each other. And in the first book, they had a terrible emperor who everyone hated, while Jovis was considered a hero of the people. So now, while they're working together, and Lynn is the new emperor, she's jealous of how everyone instantly likes Jovis when she's trying so hard to get people to like her as the new emperor. There's some good action scenes in here. The lore is pretty interesting. And things are a little bit more complicated than just good versus evil with one of the villains in this book. So far with this series, I've liked The Bone Shard Daughter and The Bone Shard Emperor. There's one more book that I haven't read yet. So I'll read that at some point eventually. So remember to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, and read The Bone Shard Daughter and The Bone Shard Emperor instead of Suddenly Super.